Welcome to the final episode of the Salty Complainers podcast, where in this episode we're going to be going into the Battlefield franchise. Not going to be confused with the Battlefront franchise, but in this franchise it's going to be a lot more gruesome, I would say. It's a lot more adult violence and a lot other more adult tones. Battlefront is more aimed towards kids, whereas the Battlefield franchise is more of kind of a more teenage shooter, which is, I think, why I picked this game up later than I did with Battlefront. Because with Battlefront, I played that probably when I was between 10 and 12. That was my main time playing that game. But Battlefield I didn't pick up till I was probably about 13, and after I think it's because with the maturity, I just grew more into that style of gaming, especially with introductions to like Halo, which is also have more adult themes. But I think Battlefield is the first game that was like violent for me, because Halo I think is teen also, so it's not that bad, but I think Battlefield is a lot heavier. Battlefield for me will always be a special franchise because of the introductions that I had to meeting people online. Because unlike the other two games, this was the first game where I had Xbox Live for, and was really the first game where I actually like talked to people outside of like school, and it was a lot different comparing now to back then. Because my maturity, I feel like if I hadn't played this game, my maturity level would be a lot less, because of how you kind of have to embrace a lot of things in order to play video games. You have to kind of have a mental toughness with all the trash talk that goes along. But I think this game really got me to communicate with others in a different way, because whereas before you thought everyone in the world was like the nicest person, but after playing a more mature game, you realize that not everyone is really genuine and a nice, good person. So it's kind of different thinking about the ways that different games can influence how you grow up. I think an important note hit on is the franchise's development over its course, because I didn't play the first two. I did play Bad Company 2, but Battlefield 3 was kind of my first game that I played in the franchise. I'd seen other people play different Battlefield games, but I never played them myself until Battlefield 3. That was really my first game that I played in the franchise. But it's kind of sad because that was kind of the only game that actually was like worth playing. Well, not worth playing, but like it was really the only game in the franchise that doesn't have major problems as far as gameplay. I think the first problem with the new series of games is the fact that they kind of borrowed influence from the Call of Duty franchise and made it a lot similar to their style, which used to be a lot different than the Battlefield franchise, because Battlefield kind of prided itself on being more realistic view of combat and kind of had more vehicle based and more kind of lifelike gunfights and everything. But with the new game, they did a good job of going to the right genre, which was World War One. The problem was that they borrowed so heavily on the new fast-paced action of modern-day shooters such as Call of Duty that it takes away a lot of what made Battlefield. And at this point, it's not really what you expect Battlefield to be, because in the older games it was kind of, you do whatever you want and you have fun, but it had its own style. Like, the visuals were different, the gunplay was different. Like, you didn't get aim assist. It was like you didn't have to play the game. But in the new one, there's so much emphasis on like aim assist that like you can be the worst player in the world and still go positive. Like, when I'm playing, I can run around with a pistol and probably do better than 90% of the players in the game, and that's not what you want to happen in a game. I remember in Battlefield 3 when you had to kind of try every game just to do well, or at least decent. Like, there was only one map where you could kind of get away with just choosing anything and doing well, but now with Battlefield 1, it's just, you could choose the worst gun in the game and still do well. Like, the problem with it is how lower down the player base has been, because it's mostly because Call of Duty has fallen so far that all of the Call of Duty players have gone and bandwagoned over to Battlefield. But the problem with that is now the player base is drenched into the Call of Duty players who, I'm not trying to smack talk, but Call of Duty players are generally a lot worse than Battlefield players. So you get a lot of people who aren't really used to the Battlefield style and just kind of run around and don't do anything hopeful. And it's just a huge disappointment, because the game, a lot of the stuff with Battlefield 1 is good. It's just the fact that all the players are kind of worse. The gunplay has been tuned to the fast-paced style of just kill people instantly, and the auto-aim feature has been drastically revamped and made it almost impossible to miss targets as long as you have any sense of aiming. I think I could go on for a lot more, but I think I'm going to leave it there. So with that, that's going to conclude my final episode of this 3 podcast series, and I hope you enjoyed it, and tune in for possibly more if I end up enjoying these. But other than that, catch you later.